Hello everyone. Welcome to probably my last video of 2024. We're going to do a live stream, basically. Simple as that. Simple, simple, simple. So I'm going to talk today, certainly regarding the obvious, why the baby was thrown out the bathwater with the market yesterday. The Fed pretty much crashed the market. We had one of the worst Federal Reserve kind of speeches we can ask for at the end of the year, which allows for a very interesting Dow Jones to drop, the S&P to drop, the dollar to rise. Yeah, not fun. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I hope you are all very, very well. Like always, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. And obviously jump in the chat, the chat, sorry, and ask some questions. I'm going to be talking a lot about some random stuff in the traditional market in terms of why things have kind of went a bit awry today and why things could be very, very important. So do stick with it. I will get to your questions later on. But yeah, let me know if sounds okay. I've not put the music on because people found it irritating. But yeah, leave a like. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about the good stuff and the obvious stuff because I think it's very, very important. So the first thing that people get a little bit upset by is performance of the market. Before we get on to what news did happen, this is where we are. Let's put a thing on it. Q4 for Bitcoin and for Ethereum has been pretty damn solid. Given the context of what's been happening with the market, altcoins are not doing very well. We need altcoins to do well, and usually Ethereum is a trigger for that. But what happened over the course of the last few days made me write this morning. I'm struggling to find words of why people are so over emotional and getting really annoyed and upset. And yeah, we can look at all the comments as well in terms of like potential PTSD of the past, obviously over risked, overthinking, overreacting, all that kind of stuff. But the market hasn't really drastically died, and we already know what's happened. We haven't really had a true alt season yet. What happened over the last few weeks was very, very easy to kind of pinpoint. XRP moved. Yeah, lovely, great. That was it. Algorand moved. HBAR moved. Cardano moved. Certain coins moved, not everything, which was somewhat, I know, upsetting for some people. Which, I know, let's be honest here, it makes sense when you think about it. And obviously dominance is going to drop and it's going to get people excited. And that dominance dropping, yeah, it is because it's the higher elements. But yeah, we'll see how things go. Anyways, let's get into what happened yesterday. So the first thing we need to talk about is the Bank of Japan. I know, weird. They actually, remained as it, remained where they wanted to be. And what really upset the markets not too long ago was when these decided to rise their interest rates. They stuck. Whew. Right, moving on to the next part. England also decided to stick, which I find a bit baffling, really, let's be honest, because their their inflation rate is currently rising right now. Hello, UK peoples. Now, the obvious one in the room. What happened yesterday was very interesting, and the dollar rose because of it. And this is where we're getting to the crux of it. The Federal Reserve, and I'm going to highlight it, this bit, basically. We've had basically a little bit of a trigger to state that we're going to have fewer rate cuts. Okay, that's fine. The Fed now forecasts just 2 additional rate cuts next year, a sharp decrease from 4 projected in September. So we're looking at a 0.5 basis point instead of 1%. So we've got 2 more to come, and that could be it. So why has this kind of made the market go, oh? It's quite obvious, really. People want that QE. People want the borrowing to become more feasible. Lower interest rates increases borrowing potential. Therefore, more and more people are likely to increase their risk in the market. It's quite simple. When you've got high interest rates, you're going to get, a lot less interest in borrowing money. And when you get borrowing money, it equals more liquidity in the market. Therefore, you may need to use quantitative easing to enable that to happen. It's interesting, right? So what performance is that giving us? Well, when I look onto this part here, The stability of the stock market was really shaken up yesterday. You can see that drop there. That is just a US stock market index. But when we talk about the Dow Jones, this stat is unbelievable. It dropped 1,100 points yesterday, 2%, 2.5%. 10th consecutive day of losses and the longest streak since 1974. Talk about putting a cherry on the top of the cake. But what I'm going to say now is very much different. Bitcoin has held up relatively well. Bitcoin's only down 3% from the top yesterday. It's bounced. And the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones, they pretty much had similar losses yesterday, which is fair enough, right? It's obvious. So yeah, we'll see how things go. But you also see stuff like this. The Fed are also lowering its forecast for the unemployment rate, raising expectations of core inflation and economic growth, sending treasury yields higher. Moreover, stretched position of extreme bullish sentiment also left market vulnerable to a sell-off. Basically, if you're looking for the non-technical jargon, they're basically saying we didn't make a recession. We're looking all right. But I know a lot of people will comment saying, oh, but there's a recession coming. Maybe. One other thing to talk about before I really get into crypto, and obviously looking at what Jerome Powell said, which probably did upset the market more. We have a triple witching incoming, basically, where everything is going to expire at the same point, right when the markets are closed for Christmas, right when we've had this really shitty news that, oh, we're not going to do as many cuts. Oh, fuck. So it could be interesting. But this is where we are. And as I said before, going to be less of these. Fair enough, we'll see how the market gives us. But what was really said was the inflation rate targets are somewhat sticky, and they believe that they're not going to reach their 2% target, which they've missed for a long, long time now, right? So the goal was many, many years ago, when you remember the olden days, of a 2% return to inflation rates. Well, that seems to be somewhat less likely right now. So obviously, it's given us that kind of basis that, oh, well, maybe we die a little bit in terms of the markets because people don't like it, and when we miss it, yeah, basically simple as that. So where are we? Well, this is where we are, and as I say, the market isn't looking that bad. When we look at Bitcoin, it's like, what's all the drama about? Why is everyone overreacting? I think the problem is, going back to that tweet, is overreaction. Looking at the overall bigger picture. And it could be very, very fun to see. But yeah, we'll see. I'm pretty sure I've just done a... Oh no, we're good. Just checking something. So yeah, with regards to that, what's funny, as I say, overreaction, it's been a bit crazy. Altcoins, people want them to move, and I've been talking about alt season as one potential opportunity is when Bitcoin does nothing, like purely nothing. And I'm hoping that happens over Christmas. Now, I've had it in my Patreon, I've had it in Learning Crypto, I've had it on my comment section, I've had it on X, I've had it everywhere. People asking when alt season, and that's fine. An alt season will appear when we do literally nothing. And what the problem we have right now, with the obvious in the room here with Bitcoin, is we are slowly trickling up still. And when we get these big vaults of like absolute crazy volatility where it just goes and then goes back up again and then goes, it creates a little bit of a problem. Altcoins don't like that. We need, right? So basically, going back in time, we had this period here where we had a little bit of a moon dance at this point here with some assets, and also here. We need Bitcoin to do a push and then a nothing, literally nothing. So the big factor we have in our core for altcoin holders, if you're holding altcoins, is ETFs will stop. Kind of. Not all the time, but over the course of Christmas, there will be periods where these will not be in the market. So that might help. It may not help. It may dump. I don't know. We'll see. So we've got to look at that as a factor. The big underlying issue we have with all of this is the two reasons why we get alt seasons is, one, accumulation, continuation, phases, and all that kind of stuff in terms of the follow through of a market when it's strong and bullish. So you tend to get an alt season, one, when Bitcoin is doing nothing, and the continuation is going into altcoins. Cool. The other one is a slow top. Don't want that just yet. So put it this way, if Bitcoin, say, goes 200, 250K, whatever, in the future, and we have a slow progression, we may well get a 2017 style alt season where it runs way after when Bitcoin tops. That at the minute is miles off. So I was hoping for a potential alt season now into Donald Trump's inauguration. Might happen still, maybe not, who knows. Into then, therefore, say, Bitcoin to run once, things get a bit more interesting in Q1, Q2 of next year. But I don't think that's going to happen just yet because I think Bitcoin needs to stay still. And right now, even though we had that really interesting situation with obviously the markets, well, guess what happened? Bouncing. We're looking pretty strong, in my opinion. Moving on to the lower time frames, you can see that we have bounced quite nicely. And you could argue, yeah, it's in somewhat of a downtrend, but there's probably going to be a hell of a lot of support in and around this 100K level now. It's probably going to be a psychological level. Now, obviously, it's hardly been tested yet. It's brand new. It's fresh off the press. But ultimately, people will be looking at that 100K level and go, you know what, that's pretty strong. What does this mean for altcoins, as I say? Well, it depends on how high you think Bitcoin dominance is going to go. Right now, XRP, cool, did very, very well. Some other assets that are quite high in the tree did very, very well. Well, give or take, yes. But when we look at the likes of XRP.D, which is this chart here, what if this drops 1% or 2%? Well, it's going to mean that the increase in Bitcoin, Bitcoin dominance is going to just go up again. Likewise, with the same with Cardano, had a really good squirt to the upside. What about if it pulls back into some of these levels and the dominance drops a bit? They're all going to add up. And more to the point, Ethereum is still struggling. Like that is really the key to it all. We need Ethereum to do well. And what was mentioned in Learning Crypto Discord this morning by Gaz was, well, the last time that Ethereum bottomed was when QE was announced. Just saying. So that could be a bit scary. So we need to look at that as a point. For me, though, I don't think the market's nowhere near as bad as people let on. I think there's a lot of overreacting. We just have to be very, very mindful of what Bitcoin does. And I know I'm looking from a position of being in Bitcoin and being very heavy in Bitcoin and obviously in the Bitcoin ecosystem, but the reality is here, Bitcoin has done fantastic and it has created a lot of wealth. The problem is it's sucked all the life out of the altcoins for obvious reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities in altcoins, but you've got to have the balls to do it. As to some people, Ethereum, in terms of these levels here, this is on the BTC chart. It's crazy to think that this level is going to be so key. Is it going to hold? What if it goes lower? The conviction of people holding Ethereum is going to be really tested down at these lows. You've got to think, we're talking like 2021 levels pretty much, like before the last pump. It's like, oh fuck. So stuff like that, it's going to be dicing with like a lot of conviction. Same with Solana. Solana, a lot of people talk about if, I hold Solana. I'm actually looking to rotate some of my Solana into Magic Eden, which is still dying to death because of the airdrop. This level here, which let's be honest here, is going to be absolutely key. This level stretches all the way back to literally this time last year, give or take, when it broke out for the first time. It's absolute madness to think that that is the BTC pair, Solana. It's basically treaded water for nearly a year. People forget that. It's crazy. Yes, obviously the USD chart looks great because ultimately, yeah, we were there. But this level here, it needs to bounce. Both of those levels in conjunction need to bounce. What might that give us? It might give us interest in the market because meme coins might eventually return. Whether they do or not, well, we'll see. We'll see how things go. But yeah, feel free. If you have any questions, let me know. I love how someone just commented saying, I think this is pre-recorded. It's really not. I've just made my stream look awesome because why not? It took me a long time to get 4K on this and not kill things. It took me a while. Do you know what the biggest thing was? Was actually Google Chrome. Google Chrome was an absolute cock. So heavy. If you're ever using like Google Chrome, don't just use Brave or something because oh man, the CPU usage is ridiculous. But yeah, leave a like if you're new. Obviously, if you are a new subscriber, welcome. But if you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to. Don't mind people asking questions. Just don't ask questions about what your thoughts are on an altcoin because it's utterly, my opinion at the end of the day, and I usually upset people. I don't really do altcoins these days. Do a few, don't get me wrong, but nothing crazy. There's some good news coming out though in terms of a lot of things. It's like good developments on like interoperability and stuff like that, which is great. But The bottom line is, and I mentioned this in my one of my videos on Patreon yesterday about, well, when does the interest in altcoins come in? And I use the example of like Polkadot and like other assets that are quite newish, but they had that one big burst, and they got a lot of like ex subscribers and a lot of followers on YouTube. The same with my account, right? When I look at my YouTube account, I've got 73,000 subscribers. My average viewership is about 6%, give or take, which is actually higher than most people's in the crypto space. It's a heavy churn niche, basically. So it's like fitness gurus that have the same, where you get like a big spike in New Year, or cryptocurrency finance, and you get a lot of people who have a lot of subscribers, which is fair enough, right? But when are all those people going to return? Right. So you got to think like, look at all the other big YouTube accounts, and they've got, some of them got like 1 million subscribers, but they're actually not getting that many views versus 1 billion subscribers. So like, you think, what about when they return to the market? What about if like the Google algorithm just goes, boom, you've liked crypto before, you might like crypto again, and then you start looking at that browse feed again. It could be mental. So yeah, there's a lot of interest to come back into the market. We had a little taste of it twice this year. I think the start of the year, obviously, when things went a bit crazy, obviously things went a bit bananas, and I think I grew about 12, 13,000 subscribers in that period. It was crazy. And the little taste that we had not too long ago, a lot of my views are a lot more, widespread now. But yeah, some things are very, very interesting to see the market and how it is kind of going. But yeah, it doesn't help when things take us for a ride. And I mean, this dump here was on the S&P 500 was pretty nasty yesterday. I think a lot of people got burnt by that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like that's like a pretty much a 2-day 4% drop. Oof. In terms of other things, a lot of people talk about the Russell on my Discord and stuff. And I don't want to become one of those like arrogant knobheads and going, oh, but look at this. I had that level marked out for a while thinking this is critical. And I knew that we kind of pulled back from it, but that dump yesterday made it look like a real shit sandwich. Like, oh. And I'm hoping it does pull a lot of this back. And this is a 3-day time frame. The daily looks even worse. I mean, you can see it. Like, we were pulling back, and you're thinking, you know what, it's all right. We're pulling back. It's okay. It's fine. Go and retest the EMA. Cool. And then went below it, and like, oh. And then started this week. Oh dear, not looking good. So weekly time frame though, yeah, you can see this is a really interesting, but it might survive it. We'll see how it goes. Still got 1 day, 7 hours to go. Not long to see if we can capture that back. So when the market does kind of get a grip a little bit, we might actually find out what's going to happen. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. QE will be bullish. Yes and no, kind of, as you can imagine. With QE, you have one situation is we could burn ourselves basically with inflation. Now, it might be good for crypto. It might allow more and more people to come into crypto because obviously it offsets inflation quite a lot in terms of performance, obviously with Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. It might actually be good for gold and stuff, but can't keep doing QE. We can't. It's just not right. It's like we're going to have in the next 20 years hyperinflation in some very, very big countries. And we're already finding it in the UK. And I know it's going to sound daft, but salaries of £40,000 in the UK is not enough nowadays. Like 20 years ago, that would have been like, fucking, you're doing all right. Right now, nothing's impossible, but it's just getting more and more interesting to Bitcoin. And I don't want to become a cryptocurrency forever kind of guy. I don't. I want to be able to go and I've made good money on cryptocurrency, but actually be able to use it out, like use cash as well in the world, like everyone. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. But yeah, are your thoughts on Nia changed? No, Nia's released something awesome today. In terms of like being able to swap your assets, Bitcoin native, your XRP native, using the Nia protocol. So it's pretty decent. What do I think about Entangle? To be honest with you, I really liked the technology and what they were building, and the problem I had with Entangle was the fact that they absolutely shafted everyone who invested in it. So they changed the tokenomics twice. They blocked us from selling like for 4 months, and the price still died. Then they changed the tokenomics again, and then they literally went, you know what we're going to do? We're going to release everyone's funds. You're going to get 50% less, and that's it. That's it. All the funds have like been released. You didn't have any kind of opportunity to go, you know what? I don't want that. I just kind of went, well, bollocks, whatever. So yeah, kind of like the team kind of shat on it a little bit in terms of like, they just didn't have patience with it. Like, if people want to sell, let them sell. But the fact that all the key opinion leaders were actually frozen for 4 to 5 months, and they added a cliff on top of that, and the price still dumped, was quite mad, really. you normally would blame people with weak hands, but no, crazy. Ooh, that's a good question. You think you think the top is when? I think the top is when something goes wrong, which I know is going to sound really obvious to you guys. Sorry, but I've mentioned this a few times in videos, and I don't like to put rough datings on it. What I like to say, and feel free if you've watched my content, you may know this, is if I've made enough money, I'll get out regardless of what happens, right? I've got Donald Trump's inauguration on my chart, and I've got 1 year from halving. 1 year from halving, we're often pretty much higher. We already are right now. And there's a bit of data that states 100 days after the 1 year from halving tends to be kind of roughly where we should be, kind of, at that precarious zone. That would put us into that June, July sort of time where the market might be not that far away, considering when we've kind of topped in the past, and every single bull market essentially or cycle, we tend to get, we tend to top faster, not by much, but it tends to creep a little bit. And it's more for the fact of me and thinking, if I've made a lot of money in that time frame between, say, let's just say June to September or whatever, this sort of period here, you're kind of thinking, well, why would I want to wring the neck out of it when I've already made a lot of money? And that's the thing. If you've bought the lows, right, which I did down here, I was very, very fortunate. You got more chance of making money than buying up here and hoping it goes higher. That's my overall kind of thing, is buy as far away from all-time high. And I know altcoins are looking like that as well. If you got conviction, you're fine. But with Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes to 200K, I would be very, very twitchy personally, because I've been holding since 2016. I bought the dip back in here. Yes, I did buy some altcoins as well, and I totally shouldn't have. The only thing that really kind of did really well for me was some of the pre-sales and obviously NIA. But ultimately, you're never going to no one's going to compete with me buying at these levels versus someone buying at 100K hoping it's going to go to 200K. Even though I know new people are going to go, oh, but why are you selling? Well, because my bags were bought down here, you're going to have a lot more high return. But that could also combine with me for miners. Bitcoin miners may be much higher in price, which they are doing pretty well. Considering yesterday was a bit of a rough day, some of the Bitcoin miners technically are up quite a lot over the course of the year. As you can see, they're doing okay. Nothing crazy. Well, actually, it depends how you look at it. It'll up 3, 4x some of them, maybe 5x on some too. Just depends what you're buying. So it all becomes a combination. What the thing is for me is, when do we get a rotation into altcoins? Well, we need Bitcoin to do something boring. And I wanted to do an 8-week consolidation of nothingness, and then we'll see if it catches up, but we'll see. But the reality is here, timings are kind of weak because anything can happen. What about, right? We've got so many situations with obviously MicroStrategy and them buying a lot of stuff. What if something goes wrong there? What if, something goes crazy and all of a sudden everyone gets very, very bullish and the leverage comes out and then it all goes drastically wrong? You've got to get out before the fire hits, so to speak. And I think people kind of somewhat forget that. But we'll see how it goes. It's so many different factors to it. And at the end of the day, no one can argue with anyone if you made a lot of money. And that's the reality of it, to be honest with you. Also, if anyone's new, subscribe, like the video. There's only 29 likes. Come on, guys. Let's get over 150 likes. That'll be awesome. What does the Google trend show on crypto? Quite low still, I think. The only thing that's like risen recently is like Bitcoin meme coins and stuff like that, like little niche things like that, but nothing crazy. Even my YouTube, when I look at my YouTube, yeah, my viewership has increased. I've got more views on my videos, and that's fine, that's good, but it's nothing wild. Nothing wild. Even though there's 150 of you in here right now, which is more than normal, it's not the main, whereas in the previous cycle, in the hype, it was like 2,000, 2,500 people. So there's a long way to go, right? So I will be doing more and more live streams. I'm definitely going to be doing it instead of videos. So I'll probably do a lot less content on YouTube and do more content on Patreon, more content on learning crypto, because I'm doing more and more stuff on there. It just manages my time better. And also on a live stream, I can do for longer and I can ask questions, I can do stuff, and then I can clip it later. But right now, there's 152 people here. Normally, you find a lot more. But we'll see how it goes. 4-ton Cardano and HBAR, both pretty decent in my opinion. I've held Cardano twice in 2 cycles, not this cycle though. HBAR, I've never really liked the idea of buying it just because it didn't really fit my kind of investment thing. But I know it's solid. It's been around for a very long time. Link is the only. Oh, nah, I disagree with Link. I know a lot of people like Link, but I genuinely don't. I just don't get that feeling for it. It's good plumbing. It works. It's used around the market, but in terms of like genuine price action, it's failed since 2020. It really has struggled. If you look at the BTC pair, it's one of the worst performing coins out there, and that's mad to say. It really. I'll show you. And I've said this before. Like people like look at Link and think it's the best thing ever, but I'm like, it. Yeah, this was before that bull market. Like this was deep in like lockdown, COVID territory. This was like before, like the bull market was starting in like the end of this year, 2020. And then it just didn't do anything. And it continued to do the same. It's all the way down here. Like when you think about it here, this was like a really interesting price point, but it never even got anywhere close in the price cycle. I mean, a lot of people get very bullish on it and talk about it, but the utility just isn't there. Even though it's got all the users of the plumbing of all the exchanges or whatever, but there's something that isn't quite right, and I can't quite put my finger on it. And you could argue the same with XRP. XRP is different though. XRP was getting, you know, really, really bad prior cycle, which is understandable with what was happening. They got sued by the SEC, exchanges delisted it, and it got, no interest because of that. It's huge, right, when you think about it. So you can let this one off. And there's going to be a lot of potential gains here because it's missed a cycle. Link had nothing really, let's be honest, and you can see it. This was that big BTC top, and this was when Bitcoin took over. Imagine what the price would have been if XRP remained at like that 1600 Satoshi level. It would have been fucking mental. Just didn't happen, unfortunately. So yeah, try not to get too caught out with the side of it. I think it'll do all right, but don't get me wrong. I just think it's majorly underperformed versus other things. Like other things in the market, you can see cycle 1, cycle 2, probably going to get cycle 3 up here somewhere on Cardano as an example. So it's just one of those. It's like really, really missed out in my opinion. Thought on Ripple to invest 10 million into OpenAid. I have no idea, to be honest with you. Ripple can do a lot of things, to be honest with you. They've got the monies. Every bull run ends quicker than the last. Next, who knows? Who knows? I think there's I wouldn't say it's bearish, but a lot of people are thinking this is going to be the last ever 4 years. I don't think it will be. I think we'll continue with the cycles. I do. I think, it sounds obvious, let's be honest. I'm going to talk about the world of bullish markets and cycles and that's how markets run, right? Look at gold, look at the S&P 500, look at certain stocks, they run in cycles. And a lot of people are like, we're never going to get another bullish market. Yeah, we might not get a crazy, crazy alt season, but ultimately we're probably still going to get a bullish and bearish market and a consolidated market, whatever. Left translated, right translated, mid-curve, all that kind of box, right? It'll still happen. And then we'll probably get super cycle at some point. It's crazy when you think about it. What is your opinion on dog runes? If it gets listed on spot, or listed on top exchange, what? Oh, I think I love a rune. I think people really misunderstand runes, right? And obviously what I'm going to say now is definitely not financial advice because they are incredibly fucking risky. I've got like 4 to 5% of my portfolio in runes, which is like a really, really high risk Bitcoin play. It's kind of obvious, right? And it's all pricing sats. It's all looking relatively tickety-boo. But these are tiny, and I think people forget that. And let me just show you the data, right? The data is currently, it's a $1.47 billion market capitalization on all of these rune coins in, combination. And they're UTXO-based fungible token, right? Based off the Taproot protocol done by Casey here. Now, when you think about ordinals and the money in ordinals, when you think about runes as tokens and the fact that we could be getting smart contracts on Bitcoin, which I know people are going to be like, what? Yeah, that could be getting written back into the code. That could be mental. It could allow a lot more developers to return to the market. And this is just giving us a little bit of a taste of it. But when we talk about Dog Go to the Moon is a fair launch asset with nearly 100,000 holders. And it's got a couple, say, say this with a little bit of fucking giggles in my system, a couple of exchanges listed it, right? But that is just scratching the surface. When we're talking about this, it's hardly got many good listings. And when we talk about where can things go, this is just one of them at 106 million volume. Now, when you think about on-chain volume, where all the others live, we're talking 1.86 because it's quite difficult. I wouldn't say it's hard. It's nothing like it used to be back in the day, but Magic Eden, utilizing the Bitcoin chain, UTXOs, and doing it is, yeah, it's like when people used to buy Ethereum assets on Uniswap. They never did it. They used to wait for the exchanges, then all of a sudden the gains were gone. The degens made all the money, all that kind of stuff, right? So when we talk about, when this gets a decent, like, don't get me wrong, BitGet's all right. A couple of others are all right, but they're nothing wonderful. But what about if Kraken lists it on spot? Coinbase lists it on spot? Probably Binance will probably follow suit. Bybit. You're going to get much bigger volume. And even on the, the future side of it, we're getting some pretty big volume, and some of them are, like KuCoin here, bit of futures. Like the OKX will be a really interesting one. The volume's going to be mental, but this is Dog, and Dog's already done very well, and it's already like 729 million. But we're talking about the other ones, right? What about Billion Dollar Cat, which is like tiny in market capitalization versus it? And it's the most, in my opinion, one of the most memeable coins out there. 61 million market cap, and it's got literally on-chain volume. It's hardly got anything. That's off-chain. That's off-chain on exchanges, as you can see. If you're going to shift a lot of volume and a lot of interest, these are just going to fly. That's all I'm going to say. And I think it's worth that risk to understand that these are tokens on Bitcoin and they've got some sort of infinity with it. And that's what I think is worth the risk for me. That's my opinion. We could be looking at runes in the next. You've got to remember, these also only came out in like April, May time of this year. So they are so squeaky new. Going into a potential bull market where Bitcoin could be very strong and people are looking for, ways to make money, they could just look at runes. So that's why I say it's worth the risk. And I think people, if you're in the crypto industry, you've got to do two things. You've got to hold some Bitcoin, and you've got to dabble with Bitcoin as well. And what if, like, as I say, those smart contracts go live and people create protocols to do DeFi stuff and they don't want to change? Like, a lot of people on Bitcoin do not want to move from Bitcoin to another chain. They just don't. They can use the same chain. They can use Bitcoin. There's layer 2s now, like Stacks and stuff like that, which will enable things to happen as well. So there's a lot of good developments on Bitcoin, and I think we're just at the start of it. I know it's very much bullish hopium, but when we talk about 2016, what was released on the ERC20s were literally shitty meme coins. This is kind of the phase that we're in with Bitcoin right now on terms of that. And yeah, it could get so interesting. And I know it's a bit of a long-winded spiel, but a lot of people are looking at this thinking, but they're risky. And yeah, they are, but at least these are fair launch and there's no VCs in them, which is quite nice. Makes a change. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's as I say, 5% risk, having a bit of fun. We'll see how it goes. Cycles are cycles, but the S&P does the same. But yeah, 100%. Can you make a video on runes? I've made plenty of videos. I've did videos on what I'm buying, what I bought, how to buy them, what they are. A bit about Taproot as well. But yeah, it's new, and I think there's a lot, to be honest with you, there's a lot of content creators that have talked about them. It's not like they are totally hidden, but I just think there's been no real, oomph yet. There was a little bit of, there's been two big pushes, but I think the interesting one's ordinals. I've got a couple of ordinals laying around, and I think a lot of money will flow into them from the Bitcoin ecosystem because rich people like to collect things, and ordinals are very collectible versus NFTs because they've got sats attributions to them. In a nutshell, you can buy sats based off like the pizza block or ones that were done by bloody Silk Road or whatever. It's pretty interesting when you look at it that way. It's pretty cool. But anyways, that's just the Billy basics of it, to be honest with you. But I still think things are looking pretty good. I think people forget where we are in terms of the cycle, and it never is straight up. And I think bull markets are always harder than bear. I love a bear market. I think it's easy, and I know that sounds arrogant, but with a bear market, you kind of know what to expect. It's just down only. Whereas with a bull market, the mindset flips a lot. You're thinking, up only, yeah, we're going to go to the moon. And then you wake up and you're like, oh, it's down 10%. What's happened? You get a bit disheartened, and it's much easier to short a market that's cooked than try and have conviction of buying at the lows and then ultimately riding it all the way up. And like I say, like I might fumble my bags by looking at the fact that I bought Bitcoin so low, or I bought certain altcoins low, and they've already made like a 10x or whatever stupid, like, situations like that could well unravel in my eyes. But everyone's different. You got to think of the person who's just joined the market. They might be very optimistic. Oh, I bought Bitcoin at 100K. What made you buy it then? Oh, because I heard Michael Saylor say it's going to go to 23 million. Ah, you fucking what? Yeah, yeah, that'll probably happen. Let's be honest. Need to be careful with stuff like that. That could be really fun though if that does happen. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Could be very, very interesting. All to getting less and less important. Yeah, I think altcoins are so interesting though, because we could be saying, right, yeah, that they're less important, but there could be a time in the next 5 years where some altcoins are mainstream. I know it's going to like, when you think about it, like what if I know I've like criticized Chainlink, but what if Chainlink becomes mainstream in institutions along the whole of Wall Street, and businesses use it as an oracle because it's decentralized? Well, I wouldn't say decentralized, but you know what I mean. It's different to saying using the oracle. Like, what if, right? I know this is going to sound like this is just an idea slash speculation. What if cryptocurrency digital assets become a cheaper alternative to traditional services? That's all I'm going to say. And say the likes of Chainlink or even Hedra Hashgraph or some other enterprise solution is going to be used by, say, some big companies. Then we start seeing more and more adoption via usage of big companies. Now, that doesn't mean more investors, it just means more and more transactions, more and more utility that side, and it makes it stronger. We could be at that situation where in the next 5 to 10 years, some altcoins become that. And then it'll be like, oh, I remember buying that back in 2012, or not 2012, sorry, 2020 or 2021 or 2024, whatever. And then all of a sudden in 2030, they're like the top one of the top altcoins because everyone's using it. It's just mad. So there is situations like that where you look at it and you think, you know what, we might be just far too early for altcoins, and certain ones will probably do very, very well. But I think Bitcoin does rule the roost at the minute, and I think it should right now because of the value of it. But things will trickle, let's be honest. When do you think our shit goes up? I have no idea. When Bitcoin does nothing. I'm hoping from today, I wouldn't say from today, but I'm hoping between Christmas period into Donald Trump's inauguration, I would love it, genuinely love it, if we went sideways and did nothing. Imagine that. Just imagine that. QE, but went, don't know. Next FOMC meeting is obviously next year. I doubt they're going to do QE until they got all the cuts out the way. And I don't even know, let's be honest here. Where's the forecast? I mean, that is kind of the plot at the minute. If we're talking the last cut, potentially, now this is obviously all speculation as well. This could be all bollocks. We don't know what they're going to do. If the consensus is to drop it by another 0.5%, I don't think that's low enough to get more and more interest in the market. I think it's just going to let it tick. We're never going to see interest rates as low as 0.5% or whatever it was back. Like, obviously in the UK, it was even lower than that. Is it? Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. But if we're talking just another point, we're going to be up here. We're still going to be up here. It's very different to a market down here, isn't it? Let's be honest. But I'm not an economic expert. I'm just following what I see. But in terms of the situation of people's behavior, is ideally you want lower and lower interest rates to stimulate that usage. But we'll see. When is Donald Trump's inauguration? It is, I think, the 20th of January-ish, give or take. I can't remember. I've got it on my chart somewhere because I forget. I think it's Monday the 20th. I think it's around then, give or take. That's where I think it'll be interesting I think the market will do nothing in January. I do. That's what's given me hope for an alt season, and I just feel that Crypto might do well, but the S&P 500, for example, might do very little. January often is quite a bit of an iffy month anyways, because it's off the back of a new year. Policies change, there's earnings seasons and all kinds of stuff. And obviously the earnings in January is always a bit iffy because of Christmas and Thanksgiving. So it's always a bit of a skeptical month, January. So it might, that's what I'm thinking, you know, there may be a little chance, but as well, right? I've done a video recently on the 2017 journey that I did, right? Where I went from craziness. October to the end of December, my portfolio went even higher beyond that for about a 6, 7, 8 day period where it was berserk. Sometimes you only need like a 3 to 4 week period where it will go mental, and you'll be happy with that, providing you take profit, providing you rotate into Bitcoin potentially, because that can happen. And that's what's scary about this market. Like if we do get like even this sideways consolidation here, which was only about a month, give or take, we had a really big squirt to the upside in a couple of assets in like that start of the year, and it led us to that big, massive push. Obviously, this big consolidation allowed things to kind of melt off a little bit, and it went a bit ugly for altcoins. And we've continued going higher, and altcoins haven't quite gone with it. Not realistically. Like, yeah, we've had a little bit of a drop off, but nothing crazy in terms of dominance. But I think a lot of that dominance was due to XRP and stuff like that. If you think about XRP, what did XRP do? It did what? Down from 1% or 1.2% all the way up to like 4, nearly 5%. It's a huge run. It's a huge change. And already it's still up here. So if you reverse this gain, Bitcoin dominance is still at 61%. That's mad, isn't it? Mental. Because Ethereum hasn't moved. If anything, Ethereum's got lower. Solana's got lower, a lot lower. So when we talk about alt seasons and, oh, dominance is dropping, we need to buy a Bitcoin, we need to buy our altcoins of Bitcoin, I think it's only XRP that's really done that. Or HBAR, XLM, which is now in the top 20. That's mad. And I've probably upset someone by saying that. We'll see. Are you having doubts? Well, I wouldn't say that. I'm having doubts that we'll never go beyond 40% in this cycle because I think Bitcoin's too strong. I think people, it's going to sound daft, like Bitcoin now. And it's mad to think that, I'm not talking about retail people, I'm talking about like institutions like it now. And obviously Michael Saylor now likes it, and BlackRock like it, and even Jamie Dimon's like, ooh, you know what, Bitcoin's not too bad. I'm sorry, Bitcoiners, I take it all back. You know, that kind of, it changes the narrative a little bit. But that being said, that could well be me just saying that because we're at high dominance and everything's looking crushed. There might be a rotation that catches everyone off guard. In my opinion, it might well happen. So we'll see how it goes. As I say, I talk about this quite a lot, but alt seasons happen for a reason, and usually the reason is Bitcoin does nothing and people get bored and people return to the market. I mentioned it on my Patreon about Polkadot. Look, I could rebuy my bag here. I know, like, oh, you sold the bottom. I didn't. The problem we have with the likes of Polkadot and stuff, Injective's another one, people up here. There's a lot of people in every asset you look at, every single asset, who would have bought these tops in this euphoric phase that are probably still following, probably still got the apps on their phones. And whenever it gets to a certain point, it will get triggered and they will return to the market. Then that's it. We're off to the races again. We just need these altcoins to go even higher, just a little bit higher, and then we'll see it. But we need Bitcoin to do well too. Some stuff's doing fantastic. Some stuff's been brilliant. Sui, for example, crazy moves. Crazy moves. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, some stuff still gutters. But it'll be fine. But yeah, could well be the huge bear trap, as you say. How do you stay so chill? I've been wanting to sell my whole portfolio. Time. I never used to be like this. Like if I like I've been, as I say, I've been doing the journey of like 2017, 2016. The 2018 one is the one where I nearly lost it all, like everything, which will be the next video in that series. And it's mad because those videos don't get many views, which I find fascinating because it's like literally telling you what my fucking noggin was doing, going through the news, my portfolio and everything, right? But for me, the reason why I'm so chill is because I'm not at risk anymore. As much as it will hurt seeing it go to zero, don't get me wrong, but many new people in the market are playing with legitimate money that you have invested recently. For most people, not everyone. I know people have been here for a while. So when you've got that sort of degree of like risk, it's like, oh fuck. And you know, you're at the bounds of the emotion of it. So with me, when I talk about losing a lot in 2018 and then making it back in 2020 and 2021, and then buying the lows in this cycle, I'm okay because I've bought a house, I've got all my shit in order, I've got other assets and other diversification, I've got money in the bank as well, so I'm pretty happy. But not everyone does that. So that's kind of like time in the market, not to mention a good income too. But I've always said if I didn't quit my job and I actually carried on working and also did this, I would have made even more money because I wouldn't have had to live on Bitcoin at the lows. I would have had a lot more Bitcoin, and then I was like the big error in hindsight. But yeah, people want to sell. But the thing is, when people want to sell, you should also revert that and go, why didn't I take profit? And this is a thing, like, it's hard because we know the potential of crypto. We know the potential of altcoins. It's like, oh, fuck, like I've been in previous cycles where I had Cardano and I bought it like 3-4 cents and I sold it at $1.60 thinking I was a dog's bollocks, thinking, look at me, I'm a fucking cool investor. I'm fucking back, baby. And it went to $3. Like, oh, I did the same with VeChain. VeChain did an even bigger squirt to the upside. RSR, I bought on the big massive run and I took a load of profits at the top and then I reinvested part of it back in thinking it was going to go higher. You know, you still make mistakes and profit taking is the biggest taboo, but ultimately people sell at the bottoms and give up very, very quickly too. So I think investing, it's just all time. The longer you do it as well, the better you become. Do you think Bitcoin runes will have a chance to? I think Bitcoin runes will run when people want it to run. I think the biggest problem we have, and I forgot to mention that, when we're looking at stuff like this, and we're looking at like this is new, by the way, this order, it's quite nice actually. There's some really big like fucking horrible there's a big one here basically, like, you know, one big price of quite a decent chunk, and you can see the jump in the price. It's like goes from 2 to 7 pretty drastically. People are like, yeah, basically the problem with Magic Eden right now is they don't do split allocations on lots. So when you buy, it tends to be in lots, which is fair enough. I get that. But the reality is here, when people sell, the new thing that they're going to be releasing is it'll also split them into small amounts so it doesn't like clog it. So yeah, that's where the problem lies, essentially. And you'll probably see pretty quickly in terms of the depth. It's like, boom, oh shit. That becomes a bit of a problem. And it's, I think the same with Billion Dollar Cat had one, unless it's been removed. No, it's been removed. I think one thing is what is happening here is a lot of people, especially on dog, they're putting big, massive block orders in, trying to stop the price from moving, and they're creating fear by it, and then they're shorting it on the traditional exchanges, which is really naughty, which is a bit of a problem. So I think once it all splits and it's just fair value like an exchange, it probably will flow much nicer because if you can't get orders filled, you can't get orders filled because there's a massive block there. It's like, oh shit, who's going to sweep that up? Unfortunately, not many people. Cardano is not even at all-time high. Way, wow. Just depends, really. Everyone has a mindset that things are not going to go as high as they do, and then ultimately it does eventually, when you least expect it. Whenever Bitcoin dominates around 6%, it feels the worst decision to rotate. Depends how you look at it. I mean, the Bitcoin dominance is just an index at the end of the day. It's not the be all and end all. If you are buying an asset and it's looking like absolute dog shit and there's nothing returning to the market in terms of fundamentals or news, the chances are you're not going to buy something that's good. You need to buy something that, one, is good, two, that looks good on the chart, with the BTC chart that is, and has a future. Like, some people just think, oh, Bitcoin dominance is high, I'm going to buy all my altcoins. You need to look at your altcoin as well as an individual, and that's where people lose out. And then you've got to look at the total three. Total 3 slash BTC, which, bear with me, if I can show you this, Jan. Where was it? There it is. This is kind of this is the one that really helps more than anything. So you got to look at this as well. And if this starts to rise, it's good, obviously. And as I say, each individual asset, regardless of what you're buying, it has to have some sort of a life. Now, ICP is one of my newer holds. It's had a lot of life in terms of big bullish periods. Near Protocol is another one where it has a lot of life in bullish periods. Maybe not so much in the recent. Well, it kind of did. It did a little bit, but some people were buying stuff that didn't have any life. And when we look at Polkadot, Polkadot had a very, very little push to the upside in that start of the year, in that little bullish period, which kind of made me doubt it a little bit. Likewise with, BNB, it got going because the interest in the market returned. And again, you're probably going to find that the interest in the market will return because it's a centralized bullish exchange. Cardano is another good example, had a really decent pop to the upside in that time period, which looks tiny, but it's actually pretty good. And then we had another one here. You've got to find stuff that moves and reacts to a bullish market. If it doesn't, well, that's where you got a bit of a problem, unfortunately. Do I have an indicator? Not really. I go off what I've made more than what the charts tell me because I think the emotion in the charts will always kind of filter it wrong, if that makes sense. So some tricks that I have, and I often talk about, if you start taking portfolio screenshots and sending it to your family, you should probably take profit. It works so well, that. Don't get me wrong, if you're looking at certain things, it looks cooked. Like, I did a video ages ago on Sui, right? And you probably remember it. And I said, is this the next bubble? And my point of the video was wait for an actual pullback and a genuine entry level. And I literally did the video. I'm pretty sure the video that I did was probably around here, like near the top. And I was like, oh, I even said, it's a good asset. It's probably going to do fantastically well. But aping in at levels of resistance, hoping it's going to go higher, it could hurt you. And the problem we have is a lot of people play with leverage, and ultimately, yes, it pulled back. And this is why we talk about bull markets. And everyone gets really excited at these little tops here, but it always pulls back. And we're not talking small pullbacks here, and it looks little. But when we talk about bullish pullbacks, we're talking like that was like a 32% drop. And I did a video and it's like, guys, just chill out, relax, you're going to get a better entry. And that was crazy when I think about it. And it's the same with everything else, right? When you start seeing things move far away from the moving averages, that's another one there at 25, 24%, give or take. So these are horrible. That's an even bigger one. That's an ugly correction. You know, when you start pulling away from this moving average too far and it's gone a bit mental, probably the time to just chill out a little bit and like stop the music. And then if you're a part of this move, you can if you wanted to rebuy back at the lows, you can, but it's very, very risky and ultimately you can get massively burnt by it. So this is why I like to keep my portfolio separate. But it's all about emotions, and if you buy low and you've been rewarded and you've taken a lot of money off the table and you've risk-free, it's the easiest way to manage it, let's be honest. But people forget that, like they do. They just think it's going to keep going up forever, but it doesn't. And eventually you'll buy the top and it'll just get burned. But hey ho. Do you think the ETFs will mean BTC and Ethereum won't dump nearly as hard? Well, Ethereum is already kind of not even doing anything on the ETF anyways. I think Ethereum ETF has been absolutely terrible. It's only finally just got started recently. Like when we look at the data, it was struggling all this time until literally start of November, it started to actually get moved. So that might be a bit of a lag. But I think over time anyways, with any sort of bullish or bearish cycle, you tend to get, the element of diminishing. It doesn't go as high and it doesn't correct as much. And remember, my first cycle was Bitcoin corrected about 88%. I think Ethereum corrected 94%. Second cycle, I think Bitcoin, was 74% in terms of the correction. So if we're going to get like a 50% correction, I'd be happy to sell my Bitcoin and keep some and then rebuy back 50% lower because I get more units. But it just depends, doesn't it? Like, what if something big breaks? You know, we can't really foresee the future leverage, exchanges. There's a lot more of a movement towards on-chain and decentralization, which is probably going to be quite good. But what if Binance goes to shit? What about if Coinbase gets exploited and all the ETF money gets drained? Ooh. What about if Michael Saylor gets liquidated? You know, there's so many unanswered questions that could go wrong. But if anything goes wrong, it's always at the end of a bull market, because that's what usually makes the price do something silly. Like people get liquidated, it creates a price to move in a horrible, ugly, ugly, ugly way, and people get hurt and burnt by it, and that's not ideal. It's like, look what happened yesterday. The Fed came out with something totally random, which is what kind of, created that little problem. Are you the OG Kyle guy? Who? No. Who's OG Kyle? But yeah, things could burn, and when you least expect it. Like, look at what happened with FTX. People weren't expecting that. Look at the fact of Luna. I mean, I say no one is expecting that. 20% return of investment on your stable currencies was a little bit dodgy. was quite obvious when you look at it. But yeah, we'll see how things go with the market though. But I think for me, a lot of people just get over leverage, over risk, and then the thing is going to keep going up forever. And then, oof. So do you think we should be sitting on our bags now and waiting? Yeah. The time to buy is time when there's fear, especially if you're in altcoins. I think there's a lot of like fear right now. We are, like, if you watch a lot of people who follow cycles, we are in the mania stage. It just hurts because Bitcoin's taking the light at the minute. This is why I always say to people, always have some Bitcoin just in case, because it's not always altcoins. It's not always rainbows and fucking butterflies and all that shit and unicorns. Because 9 times out of 10, your altcoins are probably down versus Bitcoin. It's select little periods. There's little periods that give you that little bit of hopium. But yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna shoot. I appreciate the chat, the therapy, so to speak. Leave a like if you're new. Obviously, subscribe if you've just stumbled upon us. I'll be doing a lot more live streams going forward, which will be quite important for me to manage my load, because I do quite enjoy doing live streams and talking. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this, yeah, leave a like. And if you want to rewatch the replay, feel free to.